Alright. Looks like I am live. Alright, yep, looks like I'm live. So today I have two structure decks to show off, that being Yamato and Buggy, as well as one of my own deck lists, the King. I did say I was going to show that off this time, but that one will be coming last. So let's start off with Yamato. Alright. So Yellow-Green Yamato tends to be more of a rush-oriented deck, or not rush specifically, but a more aggressive deck. This, sorry. Have a little bit of a coughing problem today. Alright, so first off, of course, as per usual, we have our leader. Now, Yamato has two effects. She is a 4-life leader, 5,000 attack base. But she also has double attack, which means whenever a attack lands against your leader with her, or your opponent's leader, so you swing into your leader, if it deals damage, they actually end up taking 2 life. Her other effect is an active main, where if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you can give 2 Rested Dawn to one of your characters. So making them stronger so that they can attack, or maybe go through a blocker, and then you swing with her to get the double attack. I actually do have a build for Yellow Green Yamato. I already have another structure deck video for One Piece lined up, so maybe if that goes well, if this goes well, I will show you my build of Yamato, Yellow-Green. So that should be fun. Next up, we have our 2 ofs in the deck. So starting off, we have 6-cost Kozuki Momonosuke. He is a 6-cost 7,000 power. And he has a passive effect where during your turn, if you have 2 or less life cards, your leader gains 1,000 power. So just making her more capable of swinging into your opponent. So now she'll be a base 6k on your turn. Swing with 6k, now your opponent has to block with 2k, and you have used 0 Dawn on that. Then he also has an activated effect, which is a once per turn. And you can return 2 of your given Dawn, which, for example, you have Standing Dawn, Rested Dawn, which is Dawn you use to play cards, and Given Dawn is Dawn that you give to your cards, which provides them an additional 1,000 power. So you can give 2 of those, or you can take 2 of those from being given to your cost area rested, and he gains rush and 1,000 power for that turn. So he becomes a 8k that can attack on the turn he's played, which is what rush means. Now, the fun fact about that is he can activate this effect even after the first turn you use him. So it won't give him the effect of rush that time, but it will still give him the plus 1,000, which again plays into Yamato, who then, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you can give 2 Rested Dawn to one of your characters. So you give your Dawn to someone, maybe Yamato. Yamato swings, they take 2 life. Then they would have 3 or definitely have 3 or less at that point. So then Kozuki Momonosuke takes the 2 given Dawn to Yamato, removes it from Yamato, gives himself rush and 1k, and then Yamato can in turn give him 2 more Dawn, which would bring him to 10,000 off of 1 effect and 2 Dawn. So that's definitely a card that's going to be going into my main deck. Not certain if it's worth buying a second structure deck to get 2 more of them, though. I might see if... Well, probably not, but... Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention. He does have 0 counter, so that is kind of a drawback, but you want to play him anyways, so you wouldn't want to be discarding him for counter. Next up, we have a 1-cost Yamato. Ooh, it's getting a bit framey there. But, yeah, let me see if I can do something about that. I have one setting I could probably take off to make that less likely. Alright, so next up we have 1-cost Yamato. She has 0 base power, which means she's likely not going to be attacking. She also has 1k encounter, so pretty standard. But she also has 2 effects. So if she has 2 Dawn equipped during your turn, she gains 3,000 power. So equipping 2 Dawn to her makes her a 5k. Then her on play, which is actually really good. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal a Land of Wano type card with a cost of 2 or more and add it to hand. Then the rest go to the bottom of the deck. So on play, she's a searcher, and then give her 2 Dawn, and she can also attack. So not bad. Probably also going to be going into my main deck. And once again, the buying of a second deck is seeming more useful. Next up, we have 4 copies of a 3-cost Ashura-doji, 3,000 power, so even cost in power. Has 1k encounter, and has an on-play effect that if your leader has Land of Wano type, which if you're playing Yamato, she does, and your opponent has 3 or more life cards, KO one of your opponent's characters with a base cost of 5 or less. So, not bad actually. I don't know if I would play it in Yamato just because of... With Yamato, you want to be really aggressive. So, having board control isn't really as big of a deal in there. But having this in Yamato is definitely really good because your goal is to get your opponent to 3 life. And your leader having double attack makes that a lot easier to do. Because in the early game, when they don't have a lot of resources, that's much easier 2 life. Or in the late game, if they burn through all their resources trying to not take that 2 damage, it also becomes easier in the late game. So, a good card to run, but I don't know if I'd build it in mine, just because of how aggressive my build is. Alright, next up, we have 2-cost Izo. 2-cost, 1,000 power, and 1,000 in counter. Also has 2 effects. Let's see. Alright, yeah, this is definitely a really good one. So, with 2 Dawn equipped, Izo becomes a blocker. So they can take 1 hit that's directed at someone else, important. But also, the more important part, and this actually might either replace Onami in the Yamato deck, or be run alongside Onami. Because her on-play gives a Land of Wano leader, so Yamato, banish. Now, for reference on what banish does, let's say I was to take Yamato and attack with 5k into my opponent, and they don't have a way to counter out. Normally, they would take those 2 life cards and add it to their hand. What banish does is it makes them take the life cards and instead send it to their trash instead of the hand. So basically just a way to get rid of resources. Now Onami, that's all she does. You play her and you give leader or one of your characters banish. This has that effect, which is definitely already very good, but also can work as a blocker, protecting your life or your important cards. Like, for instance, you could use it to protect Kozuki if someone tries to kill him, or even better, Yamato, who is a free 5K with Tudon. So if you have Tudon equipped to Izo, you can protect her so that next turn she can be a 5K and swing again to try and deal some damage or take care of some resources after already being a searcher. Alright, next up we have Kinemon. He's a 4 cost 5,000. He also has 2,000 counter. So instead of the normal 1,000, sometimes you'll have 2,000 counter, which just basically means it provides better protection if you're using counter. Now, he doesn't have a base effect, but he does have a trigger. Now, his trigger is that if your leader is land of Wano and your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you play him. Now, how to activate trigger is, let's say Kinemon is the top card in my life. I take a hit, I take damage. Now, since my damage is Kinemon, if my opponent has 3 or less life, I can play Kinemon. So, that's more or less how triggers work. So, not really the best. Him being a 2K is definitely good. I don't even know if his trigger would be good necessarily, because it might just be better to have the 2K be in hand. So, I'm not too certain on that one. Now, this one's interesting, actually. So, up till now, pretty much all of the cards have been Land of Wano. But now we have one that's actually not. We have Port Gusty Ace. Now, his types are actually Odyssey and Whitebeard Pirates. So, interesting. He is a 5 cost 5K, 2K encounter, and he has an on play. Now, this card definitely works a lot better with the Odyssey deck, that being Lim. But his on play states that if you have 2 or more rested characters, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So he is a free rest, but definitely works a lot better in the Odyssey deck. Him being a 2K, as in most builds, you would want to run a couple 2Ks, just because the defensive capabilities. In my builds, I have a lot more blockers than I have counter cards, and he works better in Lim, which is a Odyssey deck, so that makes sense. And he's so far not searchable by anything in the deck, because our only searcher so far is Yamato, who only pulls a Land of Wano card, which Ace is not. So, for a 2K, I'm not certain I would play him in my build of Yamato. But next up, we have Inuarashi. He has a 4 cost 5K, 1K encounter, and he has a when attacking. So this effect only activates while he is attacking. And he has to have 2 Dawn equipped to activate this effect. But you trash 1 card from your hand and KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. So ideally, you're never gonna see this hit anything more than a 5 cost or lower. The only 6 life leader in the game is Whitebeard. And by the time you get to 4 Dawn in a yellow deck, unless it's yellow-purple, he's already going to be down a guaranteed life. So this is only going to be able to hit 5 cost or lower. That is still good. Less good that it happens after you trash a card from hand, and you have to have 2 Dawn equipped, which actually means, this is... Most you can hit, if you don't hit your opponent at all, is a 5 cost or lower. And that's only if you don't deal damage. up until a 6 dawn turn, or actually not a 6 dawn turn. Yeah, 4 dawn turn. Then you have to wait till next turn because he doesn't have rush. This is not a great card, I'm going to be honest. He does, however, have a trigger that makes him a lot better, though. Because if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you can play him straight from the trigger. Except one problem. If you play him from trigger, you are now only able to pop 3 life or 3 cost or lower cards. So I would say the only time this guy would be usable is in a yellow-black deck, where the black cards lower the cost of your opponent's cards. Then you give 2 Dawn to him and swing for a pop. Not really great. Alright. Next up, another 4 copies of Kawamatsu. He is a 3 cost 5K, so vanilla stats are usually 2,000 higher than the number of costs. So 3 cost 5K. If you had a vanilla with 6 cost, it would be an 8K. So that's what I mean when I say vanilla stats. He also has no counter, and as well as having a when attacking effect, and you can trash 2 cards from hand, add up to one of your characters with 0 power from the top or bottom of the owner's. Add one of your characters with 0 power to the top or bottom of the owner's life cards face up. All right, that makes sense now. So let's say, for instance, you play Yamato. You get her search effect, and you have Kawamatsu on field. You then swing, let's say discard 2 Inarashi. Now Yamato's at the top of your life. That means if your opponent attacks, they send Yamato from your life to your hand, and then from your hand you can play her again to get the search effect again. Is that good? No, not really. Mainly because you have to trash 2 cards for it. Honestly, in this game, so there was a time where this would have been good, back when blockers were actually more valuable. But as draw power has gotten a lot better in the game so far, or has gotten a lot better in the game, counter has actually taken precedence over block. So removing 2 potential counters in order to add 1 life is not really worth it, in my opinion. You could just have those cards and use them to counter. And if you lose your Yamato, then so be it. I think there are better cards to send from field to top of life, though. I'm not certain on that, as I don't play too much yellow outside of Egghead or Vegapunk. But that effect, again, I'm seeing a lot of cards in this deck so far that are not as good, especially coming from, which, to be fair, the first 2 I did, Bonnie and Shanks, are actually somewhat meta decks. So having better cards in general is pretty much par for the course. But yeah, this one has been really good, somewhat good, really good, and kind of mid, I will be honest. Alright, next up, we have Kiku no Jodo. 4 costs, 6k, so more vanilla stats on an effect. This one has an on KO effect, so when she is taken out, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, which again, by this point, they probably should as you're playing Yamato, add 1 card from the top of your deck to your life cards. This is actually a really good effect. So basically, if they kill her, you get a free life. If they don't kill her, they have to deal with a consistent 6k swing every turn. So, unless your opponent has something that simply removes her from the field or trashes her from the field, they kind of want to KO her because she becomes a real threat. However, on the other hand, if they KO her, you get a free life. And in Yamato, that's dangerous because the more life you have, the less likely you are to die in one turn, and the less likely you are to die in one turn. With Yamato, the more likely they are. Every turn brings a new threat of killing them that turn. As long as you get yourself situated. She also has a trigger, so when she's on life, pretty much. So this trigger is going to be pretty much standard for a lot of Yamato's cards, where if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you can play. So this will go over here as it's one of the really good cards. And next up, we have Denjiro. One second. We have Denjiro here. He is a 5 cost 6k, so under vanilla stats, but still pretty good. No counter, however. And as I said, that has definitely become a lot more prevalent in modern times. He has a effect when equipped with 2 Dons, so if he becomes an 8k, he gets this effect. And if your opponent has 3 or less 3 or less life cards, this character cannot be KO'd by effects. So, for instance, let's say your opponent is playing green. There's a fair few green cards that KO rested characters. Black, they have cards that lower the cost of your cards and then KO low cost cards. So if you have 2 Dawn equipped and your opponent has 3 life or less, he cannot be KO'd by those effects. Also, again, he's got the standard trigger. If your opponent has 3 or less life, play him. He's going to go over here. No further discussion. Alright. So, next up, we have Nekomamushi. He is a 4 cost 5k with 1000 in power, and another effect that has 2 Dawn, and that this character can also attack your opponent's active characters. Like, let's say, for instance, they have one card that's really causing you problems, but isn't going to be rested. I don't really have an example on me right now, but let's say, for instance, your opponent's playing Don Quixote Pirates, or Doflamingo. They have a Dellinger on field. Dellinger's unresting their Dawn, but doesn't become rested. You want to deal with him, give Nekomamushi 2 Dawn, and swing 7k into their Dellinger. That way getting them off the field so they can't unrest the Dawn. And the stereotypical, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, play him on trigger. Now, you may notice the heavy reliance on characters being equipped with 2 Dawn. Now, that's simply because of your leader's effect, which once per turn can give 2 rested Dawn to one of your characters. That's really the whole reason that so many of them have this effect, but it's not a bad thing because, again, in a deck this aggressive, having characters need 2 Dawn means that their power while attacking is going to be 2,000 higher. The power buff doesn't stay during your opponent's turn, but still, that's not as much of a concern for Yamato as they're more interested in playing aggressive and swinging at your opponent than the defensive. Alright, next up, we have Raizo. 3 cost 4K. It's got 1K encounters, and he has an effect while attacking, which is that you may trash 1 card from hand to rest one of your opponent's Dawn cards. Now, this goes back into the example I was giving earlier. Let's say your opponent has a Dellinger, or is playing Don Quixote Pirates, Doflamingo specifically. It's an event-heavy deck, and more specifically, it is a counter-event heavy deck. So they're playing events on your turn to try and stop you from being able to hurt them so that they can then hurt you on their turn. This card basically says rest a Dawn and they can play at least one less event. If they have all of their Dawn counted out to play their events, this can really mess with someone. If only he wasn't a 4K. If he had vanilla stats, he would be amazing. Just play 3 Dawn, have a 4K that when attack ruins Doflamingo, it ruins a lot of Sanji players, it ruins a lot of things. But it's on a 4K. So you have to give him a bare minimum of 1 Dawn to attack your enemy. Is he worth playing? Yes. He is worth having as that option for playing against Sanji, Doflamingo, any of those. Any event heavy decks. Ace. Is he worth playing at 4? No. You want him as an option, but don't want to see him too consistently against decks that don't really care about him. Seeing that he's just a 1K. So, let's put him here because he's in the okay pile. All right, looks like we have 2 more different cards in this deck. Next up, we have another Yamato. She is a 5 cost 4K, which we're starting off bad already there. 2K encounter. All right. We're getting a little better. She has Rush. I don't know why, but she has Rush. You've just spent 5 Dawn to play a 4K that can attack and requires 1 Dawn to attack leader already. So we're already in a minus. But she has an on play, which is that you look at the top, you look at your life cards, or all your life cards. Place 1 on top of your deck, and then put the rest back on your life in any order. This is a 2K. That's what this is. This, in any other semblance except being a 2K, is the worst card in this deck so far. And we have 1 more left. And it's an event, so it's already better than this. She's a 2K. A mandatory on play that says, hey, minus a life. That's it. And she has a Rush on a character that can't attack leader on the turn you play unless you give her a Dawn. So she is a 6 Dawn Rush, or she is a 6 cost, actually, if you want to use her Rush to attack leader. Just, if you run her, it's for this number right here. Anything else, and you have no reason to run her. Here's the thing. If you could choose a card, if you placed or took a card, added it to your life, and then looked at life and added 1 card to the top of your deck, she would be okay. But no, she's a -1 life. That, sure, and you don't even get the card. You have to get the card during your next draw. She's a -1 life that you have to end your turn with this -1 now. You have to end your turn, hope you don't die, so that you draw the card that you get, or that you wanted. She's 5 Dawn, which means even at a 10 Dawn turn, you now have only 5 Dawn to work with. So let's say you wanted to search for it using your searcher. You're now at 6 Dawn after playing her. Then, on top of that, if you want to use her rush to hit enemy leader, you have to give her another Dawn. You're at 7 Dawn. So you have 3 Dawn to work with, which means you can at most play an Ashura Doji, Raizo, or Kawamatsu. Glorified 2K. Rant over. Alright, and next up we have the one event in the structure deck, Blaze Slice. It's an event with a trigger. We're already off to a good start. It's 1 cost. We're already off to a better start. And it can be activated during your main phase or your opponent's, or when your opponent attacks. Already off. We're 3 for 3 so far. Now, what is its effect? Up to one of your leader or character cards gains 1,000 power for this turn. Okay, that's really good. So what that means is most counter events say, oh, they gain this much attack for 1 battle. This being a main event, it gives it the normal for main, which is 1,000 per turn. However, for reference, if you use this as a counter event, let's take Yamato for instance. She's a 5k. Your opponent swings with 5k. You play this. Now for the rest of your turn, or your opponent's turn, they have to swing with 6k minimum. 4 for 4. Oh, and just because we're already 4 for 4, it decided to add that you can rest a 4 cost or less, which means that that is 1 more card that cannot attack. This might unironically be one of the best cards in the deck, aside from these 2. This is really good. Oh, and its trigger, which I really wouldn't activate its trigger, but it rests a 4 cost or less. So it's that only the last part of the effect. I would just not even activate the trigger. And if you have 1 unrested Dawn after you take this from life, on your opponent's next attack, play it. So yes, that is very good. So that was the Yamato deck. Honestly, the best 3 you're looking at are these 3 right here. The Izo, definitely good as well. Some of these are all right. A lot of these I would not even consider playing. They're just not that good. Yamato, again, is a free 2K. There's 4 of them in the deck. Kinemon's a 2K as well that can also play himself as a 5K. And for reference, if you play a character through a trigger, that character, it counts as your opponent's turn being the first turn that character was in play. Which means on your next turn, they can attack immediately. So that's pretty good. If only these were better. Is it tournament ready? It is. This is one of the weaker ones. It has a lot of good upgrades for an existing Yamato deck. But honestly, I would remove a lot of the fodder. So this one is proof that even though structure decks in One Piece TCG are playable in tournaments, even with just 1 copy, this is proof that there are ways that can go south. That can fail. And that's okay. Not every deck's going to be a winner. And unfortunately, Yamato kind of fell short on about half of her deck. Half of her structure deck, I will say. And it's not like having Yamato as a free 2K is a bad thing. The bad thing is that there's 2Ks that are also playable in certain situations. And that's what you want to see, more or less. So, unfortunately, I would say that this Yamato structure deck has, even in regionals or locals, no meta relevance or no tournament relevance, which is unfortunate. I actually love my Yamato deck. My Yamato deck's is pretty strong. Maybe if we have time after I show King, I might show my Yamato like before I add the new cards that are useful to it. But yeah, that's just an unfortunate one, and they can't all be winners. But as you saw from the first one, Bonnie definitely a lot stronger. Shanks definitely a lot stronger of a structure deck. And the structure deck might actually be better than my Shanks build because my Shanks build is stupid. Alright. But next up, we have Buggy. Another leader with some meta relevance. Very powerful effect here. So it's active main. You can rest 5 Dawn cards and trash 1 card from your hand to play a cross guild type character from your hand. So basically what it's meant to do is take a 6 cost or higher, as long as they're cross guilds, and play them for 5 Dawn and a trashed card, which in Buggy, you're constantly cycling cards into your hand, so that is not much of a cost. But yeah. So very strong effect, especially since the actual Buggy deck has a fair number of 10 costs, 8 costs, 9 costs, just really high cost cards. And starting us off, we have Crocodile and Mihawk, the left and right wings of the Cross Guild. They are an 8 cost 7k, but again, through the effect of Buggy, that can be played for 5 cost. They have an on play, which is to draw 2 cards and trash 1 from hand. Now, one thing to note is the draw cards happens before the trashing. So if you have a card that you don't like in your hand already, before you draw those 2 cards and just throw away that card you didn't want in the first place. Then, in addition to that, it allows you to play a cross-guild type character with a cost of 4 or less from hand. So, for instance, the next card I'll talk about is Buggy. He's a 4 cost. So it's draw 2, trash 1 card you don't like, and then play a 4 cost or less. And that's more or less how Buggy's board swarm works. Is you play a card, that card plays a card, then draws you cards. That card that you just played off that one draws you cards, and then you play a card. So on and so forth. Next up, it also has a once per turn, where if a cross-guild character would be removed from the field by your opponent's effect, so not battle, just effects. So, for instance, black, green, red has some removal, not really much. It's more focused on aggression. But instead of that card being removed by card effect, you can trash 1 from hand. So, again, it's all about taking whichever card you want less and sacrificing it for the end game, which is getting your powerhouses out. Next up, we have another 2 of, that being Buggy himself. Now, this Buggy is 4 cost for 1k, but again, through cards like Draco Mihawk, he can be played for free. Which is how it gets away with being a 4 cost with only 1k in power. He also has 1k in counter, and he has an active main effect, in which is that you can trash 1 card from hand and this character. If your leader is Buggy, play 1 cross-guild type character with a cost of 6 or less from your hand. So what you do is you rest 5 Dawn, trash a card from hand. Play Draco Mihawk, draw your 2, trash 1, and then play Buggy. Then, on Buggy's effect, you trash another 1, trash Buggy to play a 6 cost or less. So again, It's just this cycle of adding cards, trashing cards, and basically just throwing away whatever you feel like you don't need in order to get your powerhouses out. Next up, we have another two of. So that's how Buggy gets away with being considered a good card, despite the fact that he is a 4 cost with only 1k in power. Because he's not meant to be attacking. He's meant to be thrown away as a resource to get someone bigger out. Next up, we have Alvida, which is a 4 cost 5k. Pretty good there. She is 1k in counter and actually has 2 effects, which one is a passive. One is a passive, one is an active, is an on play. So her passive is if you have 2 or more characters with a cost of 5 or more, she gains 1 cost. So she becomes 5 cost on the field, which that does 2 things. For the effect of Buggy, he has a lot of cards that work on 5 costs, like Alvida. So it makes her another 5 cost to be used as a resource for that. Also, she has an on play that if your leaguer is Buggy, draw 3 cards and trash 2 from your hand. So again, it's drawing cards and then throwing cards away that aren't useful to you in the moment. That theme of drawing and trashing is going to be very consistent. Alright. So once again, another character, 4 cost, 1k. This one, however, has 2k in counter and also has a basic effect, which is just he has one that is always active, which is that if you have 2 characters with a cost of 5 or more, he gains 1 cost and blocker. On top of that, during your opponent's turn, specifically, so throughout your opponent's turn, he gains plus 5,000 power. So, as he has blocker, he then gains 1,000 power. He becomes a 6k, which makes him a very effective blocker. So, again, how he gets away with being a good card, despite having very suboptimal stats. Alright. Next up, we have his counterpart, which is Moji. 4 cost, 1k again. And again, he gains blocker and plus 1 cost if you have 2 5 or more costs on board. And he also has 2k. However, in difference to Kabaji's effect, he has an on KO effect, which is that if your leader is Buggy and you have 3 or less cards in hand, draw 1. So he's really useful because, again, the rest of the deck is going to be trashing a lot. So theoretically, despite having a lot of high-cost characters, your hand will still be empty just because you're throwing it away. And he just says draw 1. So another resource in hand. And since he has blocker, as long as you have 2 5 or more costs, as long as he has blocker, he is pretty much guaranteed to die. Or be KO'd in this game's terminology. Next up, we have another Alvida. Now, you might notice this is another theme of Buggy. Is you'll see Crocodile and Mihawk a lot. You'll see Buggy a lot. You'll see Alvida a lot. And you'll see Kabji and Moji a lot. That's because 90% of Buggy's crew is completely nameless. They're just background characters. So a lot of these characters are pretty much his only powerhouses. And that's why you'll see these names a lot. She is a 5 cost 6k, so since we're getting into the 5 costs, this is where you get all of these cards to have that effect. She also has 1k in counter and another on KO effect, which if your leader is cross guild, which right now the only cross guild leader is Buggy, so this basically for the time being says if your leader is Buggy, play 1 card with a cost of 5 or less other than Alvida from hand. So you play her. Let's say, for instance, you do Crocodile's effect to play Buggy, do Buggy's effect, trashing him to play Alvida. Then you can play Alvida to play the next card I'll be talking about from hand again. So, again, just constantly cycling cards out for free, for basically free. All right. Next up, again, we have another Kabaji. This time a 5 cost with 5k power, 2k encounter, and if you have a Buggy or Moji type character, he cannot be KO'd in battle. So basically, you swing with them, and then if you control either Buggy or Moji, your opponent can't really remove him except by card effects. Is that useful? Not so much, especially on a 5 cost that's 5k. So even stats, pretty expensive. But he is also useful for a 2k. And in the right situation, he's also useful. He can also be played pretty realistically for some effect. And again, you have 2 Mojis. You're going to have multiple Buggies in deck, or different Buggies and Mojis. So having that effect isn't bad. It's not great. But also having that effect on a 2k that can attack. The main problem with the Yamato was she is a 2k. She has Rush, which is a really good effect. But it's on a character that's not useful on. So the playability comes in where she's not as playable, so she's just a 2k. Kabaji, on the other hand, can be played realistically, and it's somewhat easy through effects like Alvidas or Crocodile and Mihawks or Buggies. So there's ways to circumvent his high cost. Next up, we have Buggy, another one. This one is a 10 cost 12k, but again, he's a 5 cost. How do I figure? Rest 5 Dawn, trash a card from hand, play Buggy. Free 12k on board. Next is on play is return place one of your opponent's characters at the bottom of their deck, any level or any cost, so no problem with the cost there. Then if you do not have 5 characters with a cost of 5 or more, place this card on the bottom of your opponent's deck. It's a 5 cost removal that and he can't attack if that effect goes off, but again, he becomes a 5 cost. He becomes a 5 cost. She becomes a 5 cost. If you have Crocodile, he's above a 5 cost. So if you have 4 other characters on board that are all 5 costs and you play Buggy, that effect doesn't go off. And let's see. And another thing to note is once he's on the field, even if your opponents remove one of those 5 costs, he doesn't go away. He goes away on play if you don't have a 5 cost. So that's another way to keep him, is even if your opponent is playing a removal deck, you only have to have the 4 other characters on board the turn you play him. Or when you play him, not even the turn. Mm-hmm. Next up, we have another Moji. 5 cost 5k again. So, again, the parallels with Kabaji being 5 cost 5k with 2k encounter. He also has an on play. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 Richie and add it to hand. Then place the rest on the bottom of your deck. And then you play a Richie. So you grab the Richie from that. Or if you don't have a Richie, you can still whiff that and still play a Richie you already had in hand. That's all right. I wouldn't say Richie's a great card in this deck because I'm looking at him right now. Like, he's a free blocker, basically. Because this is Richie. the Lion, 1k encounter, 2 cost 2k, but again, if you play him through the effect of Moji, he's free. And his only effect is blocker, so he blocks an attack. Having 2 cost blockers is very good, so definitely would still run this. Next up, we have one of the cards I don't know if I would really run. This is the deck where this is actually useful, but like he would definitely be a lot better if he was a 2k counter. But we have Mr. 1, Daz Bones, 5 cost 7k, with 1k encounter and no effect. Now, he is a 5 cost. Are there better 5 costs you can run? Absolutely in blue. And even in Cross Guild, running 2 more copies of Crocodile and Mihawk by buying a second structure deck would get the job done. Any of those are really options. He's not the worst in this deck, though. He is definitely playable. All right. Next up, we have Mr. 3 Galdino. 1 cost 2k. It's got 1k encounter. And on play, look at the top 4. Reveal a cross guild type card with a type including Baroque works other than Mr. Galdino and add to hand. Now, to explain that, everyone in this deck is cross guild. Oh, any type, any cross guild or Baroque works. All right, that's a little bit better. And that actually also, this searcher gives you access to the Baroque works as well, which have a few blues from Blue Crocodile. But, so yeah, he's basically a searcher for either a cross guild or a Baroque works. And it's a type including Baroque works, so not specifically Baroque works, which means also Mr. Daz Bones, who has the type of former Baroque works, can also be searched through this, but he can also be searched through Cross Guild. So, yeah, this basically just allows you to include Baroque works, adding a little bit more variety to your deck, and some options to not really have some of these cards, like Mr. Daz Bones. This gives you access to better options from Baroque works that now become searchable through Galdino, as well as former Baroque works. Next up, we have another buggy, third buggy of the deck. So, as I said, other than the Mr. 1 and Mr. 3, you're seeing a lot of the same characters over and over again. Now, he actually has an effect that states that he himself cannot attack. But if your leader is buggy, all characters with a cost of 3 or 4 cannot attack. So that's your characters with a cost of 4 and your opponents. Now the bright side is all of your characters that would attack that are above level or that are level 4 is basically only Alvida. And for more benefit, she becomes level 5 if you have 2 or more or not level. She becomes a 5 cost if you have 2 or more 5 costs. So your deck can attack pretty much in entirety, but it locks your opponent from attacking in a fair number of cases, actually. So they have to have something that's higher than a 3 or 4, higher or lower than a 3 or 4 cost. He also has an on play, which allows you to play a cross guild type character with a cost of 6 or less from your hand. So basically everyone except for Buggy or Crocodile Mihawk he can play. Next up, we have the one event of the deck, Cross Guild. One of the more important cards, 1 cost event, really good. Trigger that says activate this card's main effect, definitely good. And a main effect that says look at the top 4 cards of your deck and add a Cross Guild to hand. Then place the rest on the bottom of the deck. So it's basically add 1 card, search 1 card. And that's Buggy's deck. So you'll notice in difference to Yamato, there's only one card that I really said was a in this deck, and that's Mr. Dazbones. Not because he's bad. A 5 cost with vanilla stats because it plays into the deck. So a 5 cost 7k. I would say out of all of the power in this deck, or in this game, 7k is where you want to sit at. If you can swing consistent 7ks, it requires 3k encounter to block with most leaders, and which means it's pretty expensive to block. So if you can continuously swing 7ks, that's very good. So he's not a bad card. There are better options, however. Other than that, the rest of this deck is solid. And is it tournament ready? Yes, absolutely, actually. This is very, even with one structure deck, this is very tournament ready. You could I could see people even winning a tournament with just 2 copies of the structure deck. Take the the 4 Mr. Dazbones out, 2 more buggies, 2 more crocodiles, or crocodile and Mihawks. You're good to go. So, very tournament ready, even with one build of the structure deck. And again, it's just unfortunate that the Yamato was less of a structure deck, more of a here's some more cards for a structure deck. Or not for a structure deck, but here's some more cards for a main deck. Now, next up, we have one of my own builds, that being King. I actually just participated in a tournament with this one, a rogue tournament. 1 win, 2 losses, so I didn't do too well, but I definitely did it. Now, this deck is out of order, so I will be going over one at a time and just throwing more on when the need arises or when I have duplicates. So, first up, we have Sheep's Horn. Now, you'll notice one common thing, Smile. That is the premise of this deck. It is a Smile deck. But Sheep's Horn is a 2 cost main event. Its effect is Dawn -1, and you rest one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less. Now, what Dawn -1 means is, let's say I have 5 Dawn on board. I rest 2, activate this effect. Now I'll take one of those 2 Dawn I rested and return it to the Dawn deck. So now I'll have 4 Dawn on board. 3 rested, 1 unrested. Next up, we have one of the rare non-smiles in the deck, Kurozomi Orochi. 1 cost 2k. 2k encounter, so that's not too bad. But the real reason is his on-play. And it allows you to search your entire deck, so not the normal one-piece searcher where it's look at the top something. This is search your entire deck for an artificial Devil Fruit Smile and add it to hand and then shuffle. Now, I will go over what Artificial Devil Fruit Smile does later, but just I will bring that back up when I get to it. Next up, we have Hirokiri Kamazo, 4 cost 5k, 1k encounter, and has an on KO effect, actually, which is Dawn -1, KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So that's certainly pretty good. And it becomes a similar situation to the one character which was situational, from Yamato's deck. Let me see if I can find her. I believe Kikonojo. Yeah. It becomes a similar effect to Kikonojo here, where if they deal with her, I get a bonus. If they don't deal with her, they're getting attacked every turn until they do. So that's really good. We have next up we have the only other non-smile in the deck, that being Kurozumi Orochi. My bad. So 3 cost 4k. 1k encounter, but his on play is add 1 smile type card with a cost of 5 or less from your trash to hand. So let's say they manage to take out one of your important smiles, or you want to get Hitokiri back after he's already been KO'd, so you can do that again. 3 Dawn, add into hand, 4 Dawn, play Hitokiri again. And now your opponent has to deal with that. So next up, we have Poker. 3 cost, 4k, 1k encounter, but a really good effect on this guy. So once per turn during active main, place 3 cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck. And then up to 2 of your smile characters gain 2,000 power. So let's say you have Hitokiri on board and Poker on board. Do's that, shuffle 3 cards from your trash back to your deck, and then these 2 gain 2,000. Swing 6k, swing 7k. That's a really easy combo, and as long as you have Poker, although it might be better to play Poker when you have more smile characters on board, so he can actually buff them more. And keep himself unrested so he's a little bit safer from destruction. But him making Kamazo a 7k means that your opponent's now taking 7k of damage that you don't really have to do anything about, or do anything for. And that makes him more of a threat, meaning your opponent has to deal with him more. Next up, we have a Hitokiri Kamazo again. This one is a different one. He is 4 cost 5k again. However, this one has 2k encounter, and instead of a on KO, he has a once per turn. So when a Dawn card is returned to your Dawn deck, KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less. How useful is that in practice? Not super, because a lot of but one thing to note, a lot of blockers are 2k. So play him, minus a Dawn through an effect like Sheep's Horn, and suddenly your opponent is down a blocker, or if they have a once per turn searcher, that can be taken out as well. Now we have another copy of Poker, another copy of this Hitokiri, and next up, this one has 2 right here. We have Briscola. Really simple card here. 2 cost, 2k, 1k encounter, doesn't really matter. He's a cheap blocker. So, again, how blocker works. Let's say your opponent is attacking your life. Rest your blocker. Chances are they die, but they take the entirety of the hit for them. Sheep's Horn. Next up, we have a vanilla. We have Solitaire. 3 cost, 5k power, 1k encounter, no effect. Now, she's made useful through another card's effect, but more or less just on her own, she's not really that useful. But again, I'll get into that effect when I get to that card. And I'm trying to keep the cards that go together. So that, and Poker kind of works with all of them. But next up, we have Sheep's Head. When it decides to do it. Alright, Sheep's Head. 2 cost, 3k. He's got 1k encounter, and he has a once, or during your turn, so not a once per turn. But as long as he has 1 Dawn equipped, all of your opponent's characters have -1 cost. So that really plays into a lot of black cards where they do all that. If it was only with 1 Dawn equipped, this card would be so much better. Because for that to work with someone like Hitokiri Kamazo, or it works with this one. So let's say we're playing a Smile Mirror match. My opponent has a Poker. I give Sheep's Head a Dawn. I play Sheep's Head, give him a Dawn, and then play Sheep's Horn minus a Dawn with Hitokiri Kamazo on field. That would KO the Poker because he's now 2 cost. If it didn't have that clause that said during your turn, it would also really work with this Hitokiri Kamazo as well, because that would mean during your opponent's turn, All of your opponent's characters would be -1 cost and easier to pop, basically. Next up, we have the card, or Kurozumi Orochi. Next up, we have the card that actually this Orochi searches for. Artificial Devil Fruit Smile. 2 cost event with a trigger that says play the card's main event, which is that you look at the top 5 and play a Smile character card with a cost of 3 or less. So, any of, oh, well, not them, but any of these guys can be played off of that. And again, for 2 Dawn, to play a character with the cost of 3, not bad. Or if it's a more useful character with the cost of 2, still not bad. You get to choose. Alright, next up, we have the card that actually pairs with Solitaire best. We have Daifugo. 3 cost, 5k. And on play, you can -2 Dawn to play 1 Smile type character with a cost of 3 or less, other than a copy of Daifugo. Now, it's not a once per turn. It would basically cost 6 Dawn to play him twice, and then you would have to -4 Dawn, so you would have 2 Dawn left if you were on a 6 Dawn turn. But, yeah. And again, through his effect, 3 Dawn, -2, you play Solitaire, and suddenly you have 2 5Ks on board. Pretty good. Another copy of Briscola. Another copy of Artificial. Another Poker. Another Sheep's Head. Another Poker. Another Solitaire. We're getting into a lot of the repeats now. Another one of him. Another Sheep's Horn. Alright, we have another new one. Next up, we have Jinrami. 2 cost, 3k, 1k encounter, and an on play that says if your opponent has a character with a cost of 0, draw 2 cards, trash 2 cards from hand. And that works with Sheep's Head because I believe he's the only minus cost other than our leader. Oh, I completely forgot to explain the leader. 5k, 4 life as per usual. And he actually has one effect that you can activate one or the other. So, during your turn, by minusing 2 Dawn, if you have 5 or less cards in hand, you can draw 1 card, or give one of your opponent's characters -2 cost. Is that a good effect? Not really. Would it be better if it was -1 Dawn? Yes. Would it be overpowered? Still no. Got another 4th Hitokiri Kamazo, another Daifugo, another Solitaire, another Daifugo, Sheep's Head, Ginrami. Next up. Now, this is a character that isn't really played for the deck because nothing can play it for free, and it is Mizurka. Now, the reason it can't be played for free is it is a 6 cost 7k. Now, the main portion of this deck is centered around playing a bunch of low costs and using those to swing. And a lot of Dawn minusing, so you're not going to have a lot of Dawn. There was actually one round in the tournament I played where by my 3rd turn, I was still at 0 Dawn by the end of it. But what she is played for is as a 2k. That's about it. Another Daifugo, another Sheep's Head, another Jinrami, another Kazumi Orochi. And I believe I play her at 2. Another hymns. Jinrami and Orochi. Next up, we have a 4 cost event with an effect that says, with a trigger that says play the main effect, which the effect is KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less, then add 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. The reason I run this card at a 1 is because A, it's a 4 cost if it's not in your life, and B, your opponent has to have a 2 cost or more, or 2 cost or less. So 1 or 2 cost. It's good aside from that, but I do believe that there are some better ones. Next up, for the last card, we have Hamlet. 3 cost, 4k. 1K encounter, and an on play that says play a character with a or a smile character with a cost of 2 or less from your trash. So basically, your options are either a Briscola so he can block again, a Sheep's Head so he can minus Dawn or minus cost from your opponent, or a Jinrumi. And that is it for this deck. Now, during the tournament, I did go 1 win, 3 losses. So is it a good deck? No. Am I going to try it again at some point? Absolutely. All right, it's only 8 o'clock, so honestly, not that late. Might be able to go over one more deck. And I will. Let's see, let me get this cleaned up real quick. And I will go. I'll probably take a break, get some water, make sure I use the restroom, and choose another deck to come back with. So, going to be going on intermission for a short while, and I'll be right back. All right, I am back, and I said I was going to show this off next or during my next hand cam stream, but I might as well show it off now. So again, the art's a little bit different, but the effect is the same from the Yamato structure deck. So double attack at base, and if your opponent has 3 or less life, you can give 2 Dawn to one rested Dawn to one of your characters. All right. Next up, we have 2 copies of Land of Wano. Now, this is a stage, which means after you play it, it remains on the field, 1 cost. And it also has the effect that you can trash 1 Land of Wano type card from your hand and rest the stage to set one of your Dawn cards as active. So, to explain that, let's say I've rested 3 Dawn. Trash a character from hand to unrest one of them so then I can play 1 more Dawn. Or give that Dawn to my leader, give my rested Dawn to a character that I have through Yamato's effect. It's basically just send a card from hand to gain 1 more resource that you can use to play more. It can also be used if you have counter events in your deck to just leave that Dawn active for the next turn. Alright. Next up, we have Yamato. Now, she is a 9 cost to 9k with the effect to KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the total of both of your lives. So let's say my opponent's at 3 life because that's what I want to get him to, and I'm at 4 life because I didn't take damage because I'm goaded like that. That means I would be able to KO a 7 cost or less. Now, if you add cards that add to your life, that actually increases this damage. But then, on top of that, if you have 1 or less life cards, which drastically decreases that, you can also add a life to your, or add the top card of your deck to your life. So if you're winning, it's a good pop. If you're losing, it's a backup plan. Next up, we have Kozuki Oden. 8 cost, 8k. And he has an active main that if you rest 3 Dawn during your turn, you can set him as active. So he can attack twice. And actually attack twice. Not just double attack where they have to block your attack once, but he attacks, and then if they block your attack, rest 3 Dawn, attack again. Then again, Land of Wano can come in, unrest one of those Dawns for either your leader to have or anything really. But he also has a on KO to play a green Land of Wano type character with a cost of 3 from your deck. Then shuffle the deck. So that's not bad. I'll see if we actually have any targets for that. My main goal is that he doesn't get destroyed. Now, here's a card I was talking about earlier when I was talking about Izo, is Onami. 2 cost, 3k, 1k encounter, but the important part is on play, one of your leader characters gains Banish. So, how this normally works, play her. On a turn your opponent has not much hand and no blockers. Give your leader Banish and double attack. So that way when they take that hit, if they take that hit, they now have to trash the top 2 cards of their life, and they don't get those resources. So that's what she's in the deck for. On it, obviously, I'm going to be adding the Izos as well. I'm probably going to run both the Namis and the Izos, honestly. I have a few cards I can take out. Next up, we have another Yamato. She is a 5 cost 5k. Now, she is always treated as Kozuki Oden, so this guy. Now, there's a card later on down the line that will play off of that effect. She has 1k encounter, and at base, she has double attack and banish. So, she is what you want your leader to become through the effect of Onami. Consistently. Next up, we'll see if the theme's starting to come together here. But we have Charlotte Cracker. 4 cost, 5k. And if he has Dawn, 1 Dawn equipped, and your opponent has if you have less life than your opponent, he gains an additional 1,000 in double attack. So with 1 Dawn equipped, he becomes 7k instead of 6k, and gains double attack. Now that's, again, only if you're on the back foot. But still very useful. So if you're on the back foot, you use him, and then suddenly your opponent has 2 less life. And if you play Onami in with him, your opponent has 2 less life and not 2 more cards in hand. Next up, back with the theme, we got Kozuki Oden, 7 cost 7k. So again, that dream stat there. And with 1 Dawn equipped, he gains double attack. And then on KO, you can trash 2 cards from your hand and add the top card of your deck to the top of your life. So, Again, another card that you have to deal with. But if you deal with it, I'm going to make that your problem. Sorry I went silent there. My chair seems to be acting up. Alright. Oh, seems like it's a little bit out of order up ahead. Next up, we have Thunder Bagua, and it seems like the rest of my deck is a little bit out of order, so we might have to go back to what I was doing earlier, where I just throw the cards in. Thunder Bagua. It is a 2-cost event, and it is so its trigger is draw 1 card. Not pretty good, but not that great. It is a counter event that says one of your leader or character gains 4,000 power. Then, if you do have 2 or less life cards, add one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or less to the top or bottom of the owner's life cards face up. So, to explain that, let's say, for instance, again, we're in the mirror match. Your opponent played an Onami. You wouldn't want to do this ever, but I do. They have an Onami. You gain 4,000 power, then if you have 2 or less life, Onami gets added to their life. So you wouldn't want to do it with Onami, but let's say, for instance, they have a Kozuki Toki, who I'm going to be explaining in a short while. 1 cost, she goes to top of life, doesn't really do much after that. So that's what it's mainly for. Next up, we have Kozuki Momonosuke, 5 cost 6k, and he has an on play that says you add a Land of Wano type character other than himself to the top or bottom of life. So let's say, for instance, you have Onami on board. You play him, put Onami on top of your life. That way, when you take that damage, you get Onami back to hand, and then you can either use her for counter, or on the next turn, give Banish again. And on top of that, he has a 6k with blocker, so that's definitely very good. Alright, next up, we have Kozuki Toki. 1 cost, 0k. 1,000 encounter, but what matters is if you have a Kozuki Oden type character, she gains blocker. So either him, or since this Yamato counts as Kozuki Oden, if you have her on board, she still counts as blocker. Next up, we have Shinobu, 3 cost 2k. So she has an effect that on block, add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life cards to hand, and then she gains plus 4,000 power. So she becomes a 6k blocker instead of a 2k. I honestly just play her for the blocker, not even really to use that effect. You're starting off with 4 life, so and doesn't have too much adding to life. So honestly, just using her as blocker is fine. If you're up against a not so aggressive deck, playing her, using her effect is okay, just to keep your blocker on for 1 more turn. But using that, also, you may have noticed, here's another Kozuki Toki. These 2 are different. This is an alt art. So the alternate arts in One Piece are always full arts. You might notice a couple of them, like the next card I'm talking about. Oh, there's another Thunder Bagua. Next up, we have Otama. And the reason I'm fanning it out is to show you that regular art Otama, full art, alternate art Otama. Alt arts are a little bit rare. So for Otama, 1 costs 0 power, 2k encounter, and has an on play to look through your deck and add 1 green Land of Wano to hand. So basically just search for something like a Land of Wano, Yamato, Kozuki Oden, Kozuki Toki, Or the next card I'm going to talk about, my bad, Kozuki Momonosuke. One cost, 0 power. Now this is another one that's a little bit different. This one's harder to tell. This is the regular art. This is called the Jolly Roger art. So again, just another rarity they added for specific packs. But again, one cost, 0 power, 1K encounter, and he actually has an active main where if you rest one Dawn and him, look at the top 5 and add one Land of Wano type character. So he's the once per turn. If you can block for him to keep him alive, all the better. You can do it over and over again. If not, he's a one-time search with a rest one Dawn to search, basically. Oh, there's a 4th Shinobu. Another Thunder Bagua. Another one of those. Next up, I have a Shanks. This one's a little out of nowhere. 7 cost, 7K. And you can turn one of your face-up life cards face down, and if your opponent has 7 or more cards in hand, trash one card from the top of your opponent's life cards. Now, I actually need to read to make sure this is useful. Yep. So, the effect of Momonosuke actually plays the character, this Momonosuke, the 5 cost, plays your character to top of life face up. Then you use Shanks' effect on play to then turn them back face down in order to try and trash a card from your opponent's hand. Not the most useful, but he's pretty good. He's at a 1 in this deck just because of how situational his ability is. But honestly, he might be one of the ones being cut. I will be honest about that. Next up, we have another Yamato. Green, 4 cost, 6K. Has the effect to count as Kozuki Oden. So for the effect of Kozuki Toki, she has that effect. And on play, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less. That's pretty good because that means on her on play, one of your leader or one of your other characters can attack that character, taking out someone who's annoying. Or, if your opponent has a blocker that's giving you trouble, take them out. And for the last card, we have a 1 of Yamato. This one. The 5 cost 4K. And again, I am running her for the one reason I said anyone should run her. She is a 2K. Other than that, not very useful at all. So that's my current Yamato build. I might be taking out the Yamato and Shanks. I'll see who else might get the cut. Maybe Land of Wano, honestly. It doesn't really come into play as much as possible, so that would be 4 cards down. Right there. And definitely I'm switching out the leader because the other leader of art has better art. But with those 4 decks taken and explained, I think that's going to have to do it for this stream. I hope you all have a good night.